we're moving into Chapter 6 now, and in Chapter 6 we look at general long-term liabilities and debt service. Coming off of our capital project funds, this makes perfect sense to move into this part of the textbook. And so I'll work through a few problems and go over some of the terminology with you for Chapter 6. So I'm going to start with a budgeted and actual debt service transaction problem. And in this one, we have serial bonds. We have an authorization to issue $8 million of 3% regular serial bonds in 2020 for the construction of a new exit off the interstate highway within the city limits. The bonds mature in equal annual amounts beginning on January 1st, 2021 for 10 years. So we'll start January 2021, 10 years. And they pay interest on January 1 and July 1. We have to use accrued interest and premiums. We have to use that to service the debt. That's part of the agreement. And the funds to pay the interest will be transferred. Funds to pay are transferred from the general fund. Okay. Again, just some facts that we need. Also need to know that the year end is December 31st. So it asks us to do the budgetary entries for 2020, assuming that the bonds were scheduled to be issued on January 2nd, and also assume that January 1st, principal and interest payments will be included in the 2021 budget. So this is 2020, and we are sitting in the debt service fund. So that's where we're making these entries. And so we have estimated other financing sources, transfers in, because remember they told us that's coming in. And then we have appropriations. So we have to kind of think about what we're doing here and look at our calculations. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this in the notes. So we've got $8 million, that's the bond, times 3%, times 6 over 12. Okay, and that should give you $120,000 if the calculations I have are accurate, which they should be. And so we've got the debt service fund, $120,000, transfers in $120,000. Okay, did that make sense to you? We've got an $8 million bond, 3%, and we're doing the first, let's see, where's it at? I lost it. We're doing the estimated other financing sources, transfers in, and appropriations, and we're doing this for 2020. And then, yep, that's all we're doing there. Okay, so then it tells us that the bonds were sold on February 1st, 2020 at 101. So I'm actually going to put this, I'm going to come down here and put this in my notes. Bonds sold at 101, and hopefully you know what that is from your financial accounting experience, but if not, we'll go over that. And this was on February 1st, 2020. And so we have to do our journal entries. Okay, so we're still in the debt service fund, and I'm going to have to copy this down because we're going to be moving funds around a little bit. So I'm in my debt service fund, and we've got cash, $100,000. We've got other financing sources, premium on bonds payable. I have to make that a little bit bigger. And then I've got revenues. Okay, so my other financing resources premium is $80,000 and my revenues are $20,000. So let's talk about these numbers now. So what these numbers represent, and I'm going to again go over here to my description. I'm trying to put my descriptions in italics. The $80,000 is the bond premium. So remember it sold at 101, and so the $8 million times the 1% is the 80,000. So that's our bond premium. And then the 20,000 is the accrued interest payable. And what that is the 8 million, the face amount of the bond, times 3% times 1 month. This is, if you remember, this is February 1st. Okay, but the bonds were January 1st. Okay, so keep that in mind as we work through this. I'm sorry, not January. Yeah, January 1st, that's right. Okay, I just want to make sure I told you all that right. And that would give you, this gives you the $20,000. Finish that. Okay, so then we have cash coming into the debt service fund. I'm going to move this up. Okay, and then we have our governmental activities. Same transaction. We have cash. We have bonds payable. We have premium on bonds payable. And we have accrued interest payable. Okay, so these are the same calculations, just like we did before. And then our bonds payable is $8,100,000. I'm sorry, is 8 million. I'm getting ahead of myself. And so the cash then is the $8,100,000 because it's sold at a premium. I don't want that italicized. There we go. It's sold at a premium. And so we had more cash coming in, plus we had the accrued interest coming in. So the cash coming into the governmental activities was $8,100,000, which was the bond plus the premium plus the accrued interest. Okay, and then that cash goes into 100,000 of it. This part goes into the debt service fund because remember we're using the premium and the interest to cover our service the debt. I wanted to make sure I said it correctly, to service the debt. Okay, then, so that's that. Then we have to show the journal entry to reflect the transfer of the funds from the general fund to the debt service fund. So we're going to go down here to our debt service fund again. I'm trying to format this so it can keep, these are the funds, these are the journal entries, and what I have in italics is my explanations. So in our debt service fund, we're going to show cash coming in, $20,000, and we're going to show other financing sources, interfund transfers in $20,000. Okay, then we're going to show the journal entries to record the first interest payment on July 1st. Throw a date in here to kind of help keep you straight. So on July 1st, in the debt service fund, so the journal entries for the debt service fund, we have expenditures, interest, and we have cash going out. And our calculation for that, you should already have the calculation for that. We actually had that right here, so we can just copy that. It's $120,000. And then in our governmental activities, whoops, lost my, we have a journal entry of accrued interest payable, premium on bonds payable because we are amortizing that premium, interest expense, and then we have cash. Now, if you have done bonds, this should be very familiar to you. If you have not, let me just tell you, this is the easier way to do it. It helps if you've had it, but if not, then you can kind of see how you can kind of learn the easy way. So cash is still going out at $120,000. Accrued interest payable, we know how we calculated that number. But what I want to really show you is how the premium is amortized. So the premium, if you remember up here, is $80,000. So what we're going to do is we're going to write that off over the interest periods, and it's 10 years, and interest accrues on January 1 and July 1. So there's 20 interest periods. So every time we pay interest, we're going to write off or amortize, kind of like depreciate, a portion of that premium. And I say, for those of you who haven't had bonds extensively, this is the easy way, because this is the straight line method. And in when we covered bonds, I believe in intermediate 1 or 2, I can't remember now which one, we use the effective interest method, which is a little bit more complicated. The accrued interest payable is $20,000. We had that calculation before, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. And then the interest expense would be $96,000. And this accrued interest payable right here, see where we credited that? We're now debiting that because it's no longer accrued. That has now been expensed. Okay, so that's the way that works. I think that's it for this problem. And again, you know, the calculations are very similar to what we do in financial accounting. It's just a little bit different in remembering which fund we're in, what we're doing in that fund, and so forth. So again, just the more you do it, the easier it's going to be for you.